Hello and welcome back to the IGP Manager League on Apex Online Racing. We're at Brazil for the penultimate race of this inaugural season. It's round 16. My name is Justin Sutton and I'll be taking you through all of the action today. We've got just under 2 minutes, just over 2.5 minutes until we get going, until we get underway here in Brazil. So let's have a quick look at the standings and just remind ourselves how things are looking heading into this second to last race. It is Peter Mann who has, of course, won the championship. Now a 15-point gap between Cesar Navarro and Nicolas Morales for the battle for second position between the Argentinians. We also have an 11-point gap between Cabanas and Carrasco for fourth position. That's between the two Spanish managers. Chandler Saita and Daniel Thomas level on points, both of them with 104. Chandler Saita with that race victory, of course, is what's giving him that sixth place position, but he's going to need to finish ahead of Daniel Thomas in today's race and also in the next race as well in Abu Dhabi. So that's how things are looking. Of course, last time out though, the big news was Autosport getting 8 points in Japan. 8 points! 6th position they finished in. 6th! As Lando Norris would say. Unbelievable, incredible scenes. Everybody was going wild for that. It was a lot of fun. If you haven't checked that out, that was a great race. You could go and watch back the entire race on the Apex Online Racing YouTube channel. So that's how things are looking. Let's go ahead and head over to the race itself. There we go. So you guys can see who is starting where. And it is Peter Mann, our championship winner. I'm so used to saying championship leader, but he is the championship winner at this point. He is on pole position. Nicholas Pressey alongside him on the front row of the grid on the Super Softs, the only driver on the Super Softs for today's race. It is 35 laps. It is rather mild out there, I have to say. Only 18 degrees track temperature, so, and it is completely bone dry ahead of us for the 35 laps. I don't know if it's going to stay that way, but that's the conditions as they are right now. But then we have Autosport in third position, second of the soft runners, to be totally honest. So a really solid qualifying result here in Brazil for the Autosport team. Could they be on for a podium? Who knows? I do know, I've spoken to Autosport, and they've told me that they are keen to get into P14 in the championship if they can. And actually, who was P14 in the championship? That is Richard Joffret, actually, who has been doing very well, but only 4 points between him and Autosport. So certainly possible. Autosport need to outscore him an average of 2 points or more in order to take that 14th position in the championship standings. So we go to the lights now. Again, our championship winner, Peter Mann, on pole position. They're coming on now. Nicholas Pressey on the Super Softs alongside him. He's going to be looking to make that overtake nice and early in this race. He doesn't want to be burning up those Super Soft tires while behind the soft runner of Peter Mann, and it looks like he's already going for it here through turns 1 and 2. Peter Mann clearly pushing very hard. He doesn't want to get caught behind Pressey either, but no, Pressey has got him. Valentin Cordier making up a position as well, up into third place, overtaking Autosport, who have now fallen behind Felix Cabanes into fifth position, just ahead of the one-time championship rival Cesar Navarro, who has moved up into sixth. Now fifth position, actually, moving ahead of Autosport. So not a great start for Autosport. We don't know the fuel levels, though. They could be very heavy with fuel. They could be running a 2-stop, while others might be running a 3-stop. I think it's more likely that we're going to see 2-stop strategies during today's race with the temperatures. And now Carrasco becomes the next person to relegate Autosport down to another position. So they've got Franco Incerralde now pushing very hard behind them. He's looking like he wants to take that 7th place position as they cross the start-finish line for the first time in this race. And just about hanging on is Autosport. Franco Incerralde actually taking that position ever so briefly, but then Autosport reclaiming that 7th place spot. So Nicholas Pressey breaking away at the front, already built an almost 1 second gap down to the soft runners behind, which is exactly what he wants. It's only lap 2, so no DRS or boost is available to the drivers at this stage just yet. So Cordier holding on to third position. Oh, and there goes Incerralde now making that overtake on Autosport up into 7th position. Chandler Saita not that far behind, and then Coleman isn't too far adrift either. And then we've got the medium runners. Remember, some of these medium runners are not going to be present for today's race. I think these are the 4 that are not present for today's race: is Navarro, Fazzolari, Morales, and Thompson. As of course we get to the end of the season, we have more and more people who don't attend. But that's just how league racing goes, for those of you that are familiar with it. But here we go. The DRS is active, the boost is active, and we've already gotten some boost usage from Cesar Navarro, who moves ahead of Felix Cabanes up into 4th position, pressuring Valentin Cordier for that final podium spot. Still early days, though. We're only on lap 3, so still lots of racing still to go. A bit of a gap now starting to form between Cabanes and Carrasco. Remember, those two guys are locked in battle in the championship standings for 4th place. So Cabanes is going to be really happy about staying ahead of Carrasco, deploying some boost, as does Carrasco as well. Everybody wants to try and pick up the DRS here. Cabanes moves ahead of Navarro up into 4th position with Cordier just ahead, but it looks like Cordier is not going to be picking up the DRS here, so could be a sitting duck to Felix Cabanes as they make their way on the start-finish straight now with the DRS for the first time in this race. There's the DRS for the pink car. Will it be enough to pull him alongside Valentin Cordier? No, not quite. Now he's coming under pressure from Cesar Navarro. Lots of boost being deployed by the Argentinian, but there goes Felix Cabanes with the boost. The Spanish manager moves ahead of the French Valentin Cordier and up into 3rd position, but that is a very closely fought battle between these 3 guys. Peter Mann really breaking away from this group now. It's almost 2 seconds at the last sector. As Peter Mann set the fastest lap last race, actually, but almost 2 seconds at the previous sector split. Is it going to be any lower? Yes, it is, actually. It's 1.8. So we do have a battle going on there still. It's not done and dusted just yet, but Cabanes now leading this train. Cordier behind, starting to fall off a little bit, it looks like. I don't think Cabanes is going to be under massive amounts of pressure making his way into turn 1. Cesar Navarro with the DRS, with the slipstream effect, with the boost, is going to make the overtake on Cordier. So Cordier down into 5th position now, possibly going for a longer first stint here. Could be heavy with fuel. And then not too far back to Carrasco in Insaurralde. Meanwhile, Chandler Seitza has made the overtake on Autosport. Since that happened, about a 1.3 second gap has formed between 7th and 8th position. So they have fallen out of that DRS train of cars up ahead. So Seitza is clearly going to be keen to try and get back up to that group, pick up the DRS, try to defend from Autosport and Nicholas Coleman as well, who are just right behind him. Daniel Thomas and Richard Joffert as well, really not falling off the back of these cars too much, considering that they're on mediums and probably heavier with fuel compared to all of the soft runners ahead of them. Peter Mann picks up the DRS as we get to the end of lap 5, start lap 6. It's not going to be enough to see him move past Nicholas Pressey. We do have some more boost usage from Cesar Navarro, who moves ahead of Felix Cabanes. So some more jostling for position in this final podium spot at the start of lap 6 here. And Cesar Navarro becomes the latest person to take control of this leading group of cars. And it is less than 1 second between Cordier and Carrasco. So Carrasco and Insaurralde will both be picking up the DRS. Autosport not losing any positions there, any further positions, I should say. Nicholas Coleman, though, deploying some boost here. Looks like he wants to try and get past Autosport as well. That's going to relegate them down into 10th position, but they do still have all of their boost bars. So while the rest of the competitors have been busy using boost here and there to make up positions, Autosport possibly just holding back on that, saving it for the right tactical moment. Let's see, did Coleman pull away? No. DRS is active for Autosport, so nothing doing there. Nicholas Pressey did come into the pits at the end of lap 6, so 29 laps still to go for the American. He has fitted a set of soft compound tires after getting rid of the super softs, and he is going to come out well ahead of this group of backmarkers that we have who aren't present for today's race. So let's look a little bit further up. Felix Cabanes still just about keeping touch with Cesar Navarro. It's still about a 2.1 second gap from Peter Mann down to Cesar Navarro, so that hasn't changed too much. Now down to 2 seconds. Cesar Navarro setting a purple middle sector. Cabanes using some more boost, wants to try and catch up, get into that DRS range of Cesar Navarro up ahead. Valentin Cordier is possibly going to fall out of that DRS range potentially now. Let's just zoom out a little bit and see. Yep, indeed, Valentin Cordier does miss out on the DRS. Nicholas Carrasco and Felix Insaurralde both picking up the DRS, though. So those guys are a little bit safe from the likes of Chandler Seitza, Nicholas Coleman, and Autosport. Those three still running in pretty close formation. I believe I saw Autosport picking up the DRS down the start-finish straight at the end of lap 7. So good to see that they're just about keeping up. They have deployed a bit of boost now, but not nearly as much as Nicholas Coleman or even Chandler Seitza for that matter. Franco Insaurralde has used a pretty significant, not insignificant amount of boost. Nicholas Carrasco using even more boost, getting down towards the sort of 60-55% range thereabouts. Valentin Cordier, though, as we've seen from the French manager in previous races, really holding on to that boost. We've seen him do that in the past and kind of make those come-from-behind position gains towards the end of the race when everybody else is losing their tires and completely out of boost. And then we see Valentin Cordier just take advantage of those who are struggling with the boost usage and gain some positions towards the tail end of the race. So we'll continue to monitor him and see if that's going to change. About a 1.8 second gap between 6th and 7th still exists at the moment. So again, we have this trio of Saita, Coleman, and Autosport battling it out for what is a net 8th position after Nicholas Pressey has been into the pits. Nicholas Pressey is lapping a little bit on the slower side compared to the rest of the cars on the circuit, but of course he is going to be rather heavy with fuel, and especially if he's trying to go onto a two-stop strategy after fitting the super softs, he is going to have to go for a little bit of a longer stint in the middle and at the end of the race as well. Do we see any boost usage, any overtakes in the making down the start-finish straight? Looks like Incerralde using some boost there, but that was mainly to keep up with the back of Carrasco. They're not looking to make the overtake just yet for 5th position. Valentin Cordier continues to lead the way, about 1.8 seconds, 1.9 seconds now as they finish Sector 1 between himself and Felix Cabanes, who is still holding on to that 3rd place position. But look at the amount of boost that Felix Cabanes still has remaining. I mean, that's 10, maybe 15% of his boost bar still remaining. Look at Cesar Navarro by comparison, probably 75, 80% of his boost still available. 75, actually, I think was more accurate. So Cesar Navarro looking pretty healthy as far as boost is concerned. Peter Mann also looking pretty healthy. He's got about 75, 80% thereabouts as he continues to lead this way. 2.5 seconds now is the gap down to Cesar Navarro. Let's see as they cross the line what their previous laps were. Only about 1/10 of a second or so between the two of them. Just over 1/10 of a second between Peter Mann and Cesar Navarro. So really not much in it as far as lap times are concerned. Felix Cabanes, again, keeping up, using even more boost, though. We did actually miss that on Cabanes, but he's used even more boost. He's got very little remaining. Carrasco now in the middle sector deploying some boost. Is he defending from Incerralde? Is he going on the attack from Cordier? Potentially both. But what I do see here is Autosport starting to drop out of the DRS range of Chandler Saita and Nicholas Coleman. That is not going to be optimal. They were 4/100ths of a second quicker compared to Coleman on the previous lap, but 5/100ths slower than Chandler Saita. So do any of the front runners come into the pits? Peter Mann, no. Navarro, no. Cabanes, no. Incerralde is into the pits at the end of lap 11, so he could be doing an 11-12-12 strategy. Running all soft tires, and it is indeed another set of soft compound tires for the Argentinian. Where is he going to feed out relative to Nicholas Pressey? Because, of course, Nicholas Pressey, the only other car that's been into the pit so far, and it is going to be rather close between them at pit exit. I believe Incerralde is just about going to come out on top in this battle. Pressey carrying that little bit more speed coming out of turn 3 is going to close up to the back of the Argentinian. However, he is not going to be close enough to make any sort of moves into that left-hander at turn 4. So it is as they were before. Incerralde ahead of Pressey. No major issues there. Now the front runners coming to the pits. It is, of course, a very short lap, only 1.25 minutes. And indeed, Navarro and Cabanes both into the pits. So from 2nd and 3rd position in this race, we'll keep an eye on these guys and see what tire compound they're going to be going on to. Looks like it's another set of softs for Cesar, another set of softs as well for Felix Cabanes. So those guys are sticking with it. Oh, Chandler Saita also into the pits, as was Nicholas Coleman, and both of those guys also opting for a set of softs at the end of lap 12. So they're possibly running the same sort of strategy as Franco Incerralde, which is 11 laps on the softs and for one stint, and then 12 laps for the 2 other stints in this race. But Chandler Saita has come out just behind his compatriot Nicholas Pressey, actually. Pressey is going to have older tires here, but is probably going to be lighter with fuel. Are we going to see any more front runners into the pits? Yes, we do. Peter Mann comes into the pits at the end of lap 13, or lap 14 if we're on that lap. I'm actually not sure which one we're at, but Cordier coming in as well, as did Carrasco, and it looks like Autosport as well coming in at the end, and that was indeed at the end of lap 13. So Peter Mann, again, we've seen this from the British manager all throughout the season. He just runs one lap longer than most of the competition in that first stint. That just seems to be his sort of modus operandi. Autosport coming out of the pits. Where are they going to feed out? It looks like healthily behind Nicholas Coleman, a pretty significant gap between Coleman and Autosport. So Autosport possibly going to need to deploy some boost here. They are onto the soft compound tires. Everybody that has come into the pits, who is not being controlled by an AI, I should say, it did go onto the soft compound tires. So the only two cars still out there on their original set of tires are Daniel Thomas and Richard Joffre. Both of those guys on the mediums. However, Peter Mann is already fairly close to the back of Richard Joffre, nearly making up an entire pit stop already. And if Joffre and Thomas are on the one-stop strategy, then that means they are now on the same amount of pit stops remaining in this race as the two-stopping soft runners behind them. So not ideal, I would say. They probably would have enjoyed a slightly larger gap. They might be low with fuel at the moment. If they are going to be one-stopping, it is going to be at the end of lap 17 or 18, thereabouts. That's when we can expect the medium runners to come in, again, if they're one-stopping. I think it would be very strange if they were two-stopping, though, because they're still out here on lap 15, so that would be a very strange choice as far as strategy is concerned. Thomas is lapping marginally quicker than Joffre, about a quarter of a second on the previous lap, and indeed Peter Mann is lapping rather quickly. Let's just see the sector times. Yeah, he found 2/10 on the French manager just in the sector 2. As we come to the end of the lap, there's another 2/10 found for Peter Mann, deployed some boost, but it wasn't quite enough for him to pick up the DRS off of Richard Joffre. So he's not going to be pulling away from Cesar Navarro, who just set a purple sector 3. Not much boost still remaining in this race for Cesar Navarro. And he's actually set a purple sector 1 as well. So the Argentinian is really flying here, closing up to the back of Peter Mann. He is at a disadvantage as far as boost is concerned. Here we go, some more boost usage for Cesar Navarro. Is going to see him actually close up within DRS range. We're going to have to get confirmation of that as they come to the end of Sector 2, which is happening right now. And indeed, it is just 0.7 of a second between Peter Mann and Cesar Navarro. So Navarro will pick up the DRS. However, Mann is going to pick up the DRS off of Richard Joffre. Are we going to see Daniel Thomas or Richard Joffre peel off into the pits? Daniel Thomas opts to stay out, and Joffre does come into the pits, which means no DRS, interestingly, for Peter Mann. That's going to put Cesar Navarro right up to the back of him. Peter Mann has deployed a lot of boost there. However, Navarro also deploying a lot of boost, a 113.4 last lap for Cesar Navarro, by far the quickest lap we've seen, and he is going to stick right to the back of Peter Mann. So that was lap 16 was when we saw Joffre come into the pits. He has fit another set of mediums. He's going to feed out behind Autosport in the battle of the non-points finishers at the moment. It's about 2.3 seconds between Autosport and Coleman at the moment. So Autosport, unfortunately, at the moment, not quite putting in the lap times they need in order to close down a points-paying position, which is up ahead of them. They are still looking good on boost. Coleman in a similar sort of position, though, and Pressy actually hasn't used any of his boost just yet. He's now following Chandler Saita. He's going to try and pick up the DRS here off of Saita if he possibly can. Did Thomas come into the pits? I don't think he did. No, he is staying out for an 18th lap, but he should be coming in this lap. Again, I was saying lap 17 or 18 for the one stop. Joffre, of course, coming in on lap 16 and proving me wrong there, but Daniel Thomas staying out for an 18th lap on that set of mediums, clearly showing that they are working well for him. He's still lapping pretty well and maintains about a 2-second gap to Peter Mann behind him in second position. And unfortunately for Peter Mann, anyway, I do believe Thomas will be coming into the pits, and he will be denying Peter any sort of DRS on the start-finish straight. Let's go on board with Cesar Navarro, who at the last check was just outside of DRS range. He has deployed some boost, but so has Peter Mann to try and defend from the Argentinian, and indeed, Cesar Navarro does not pick up any boost. Doesn't pick up any DRS at the end of lap 18. Interestingly, though, Daniel Thomas staying out for another lap. So he's going to stay out for a 19th lap on this set of mediums. If he can make these go, say, 20 or 21 laps, he could try a long stint on the softs at the end of the race, which could put him in a good position, potentially. If he comes in at the end of this lap, that would be a 16-lap stint on a set of softs, and the most that we've seen so far is 13 laps on a set of softs, so that would be rather daring from Daniel Thomas if he were to go for that. But if he can make it until the end of lap 20, that's only a 15-lap stint. We'll stick with this battle and see if Peter Mann's going to pick up the DRS or if Daniel Thomas is going to come into the pits, and he does indeed. And that's going to give the DRS to Cesar Navarro, but not to Peter Mann. So Navarro looks like he's just about out of boost at this point. Peter Mann is looking like he has very, very little boost remaining, possibly 10%, even less. It could even be a single-digit number. as Felix Cabanes loses a position to Valentin Cordier. So the French manager moving ahead of the Spanish manager up into what is now third position in this race. And where is Daniel Thomas going to feed out? Oh, it is very, very close between Thomas and Pressy. He just about sneaks ahead of the American. It is going to be another set of mediums, though, for Daniel Thomas. And he's going to have to go 16 laps on this set. But he did a 19-lap stint on the set of mediums for his first stint. So 16 laps should be no problem for Daniel Thomas. And look at this. Autosport has closed up to the back of a points-paying position. So Autosport in 11th, running very, very close to the back of Pressy, who is similarly running very close to the back of Daniel Thomas. Now it seems Daniel Thomas starting to break away a little bit. Oh, and Pressy actually positioning like he's going to come into the pits, and indeed, Pressy does come into the pits at the end of lap 20. He's going to be the first to make his second stop in this race here in Brazil. Autosport now picking up the DRS off of Daniel Thomas into turn one. A bit of boost usage for Autosport. They are, of course, going to be lighter with fuel and with softer compound tires compared to the Swiss manager up ahead of them. This is now a points-paying position, but again, that's only because Pressy has been into the pits for his second stop. So we'll have to keep an eye on Pressy and see when these guys come into the pits. Are we going to see any of the front runners come into the pits? Oh, it looks like Peter Mann might have gotten lucky here with a back marker, and he has indeed. That is very good luck for Peter Mann. He picks up the back marker. Simone Fazzolari picks up the DRS to start lap 22, and that's going to give him a bit of breathing space between himself and Cesar Navarro, deploying a bit of boost as well, just to make sure he gets past Fazzolari as quickly as he possibly can. I think Navarro is going to get past Fazzolari long before we get into the DRS detection zone, so unfortunately he is not going to be given the same luxury as Autosport does it. They've made the overtake on Daniel Thomas, so great for them, great news for them. Again, they are on the softer compound tire compared to Daniel Thomas, and they're also going to be lighter with fuel, so I applaud that decision, that strategic decision from Autosport to use a bit of boost, or I presume use a bit of boost because it happened off screen, in order to get that move on Daniel Thomas and move up into 9th position. Now, of course, Daniel Thomas does not need to stop again, whereas Autosport does, so they're not really fighting him anyway, and I have a feeling Daniel Thomas is probably not going to fight this too hard. If I were Daniel Thomas, I'd probably just sit behind, try to pick up the DRS, save my boost for later in the race when it could make a bigger difference later on, and that's exactly what the Swiss manager is doing. He's sitting behind Autosport and just letting the Autosport car drag him along, and that's only going to be beneficial in his quest for, I would say, a podium position. I don't think he's going to be mixing it up with the likes of Peter Mann and Cesar Navarro in about 10 laps time as we get towards the tail end of this Brazilian race, but I do think this could help him potentially in a battle against Valentin Cordier. Cordier is now very low on boost, so actually Cordier using all of his boost, just about all of his boost. He is still running around in 3rd position ahead of Felix Cabanes, who similarly has very, very little boost remaining. None of the top 5 are coming into the pits, it looks like. Yet Carrasco indeed does stay out. Oh, Inceralde actually becomes the next to pit at the end of lap 23, so he's done an 11-lap stint on the softs to start the race, at now a 12-lap stint on the softs in the middle, and he is going to finish out this race in Brazil with another 12-lap stint on the soft compound tire. So a nice 11-12-12 soft strategy for the Argentinian. He is going to drop down into 11th, but again, he's only the second person to come in for a second time, and we believe everybody is coming in again, except for Daniel Thomas and Richard Joffrit probably is staying out as well. So Daniel Thomas still holding on to the back of Richard Joffrit. Any of the front runners coming into the pits. Peter Mann stays out, unsurprising there. Cesar Navarro, though, is into the pits. So this is a great opportunity for Peter Mann to extend his lead to Cesar Navarro because, of course, with refueling, the overcut can be very, very powerful in IGP Manager. Felix Cabanes is also into the pits from the top 5. And that's going to allow Autosport and Daniel Thomas to get by. Now, that is for position when it comes to Daniel Thomas, and actually also for Richard Joffrit. However, it's going to be very, very close between Joffrit and Cabanes as Cabanes comes out of the pits at the start of lap 25, and he is on these brand new soft compound tires. What is Joffrit's boost situation like? Not great. Not great for the French manager. So I'd say it's only a matter of time, sometime in the next 10 laps, before we see Felix Cabanes make the overtake on Richard Joffrit. In fact, it could be this very next lap that we see that happen. Peter Mann is into the pits at the end of lap 25, so it's looking like a 10-lap stint on a set of soft compound tires to finish up his race here in Brazil. Valentin Cordier takes the lead of the race for the meantime, yet to come into the pits, of course. And Cesar Navarro is just making his way into turn 1 now, as Autosport did not come into the pits. And we can now see the gap between Peterman and Cesar Navarro, and it is absolutely enormous. I thought we might have been on for a solid race here for the win. It's probably the closest race we've seen for the win, actually, in recent races. Peterman has been really walking away with the championship ever since winning the championship. He's been picking up win after win after win, and with pretty sizable gaps as well. So it's great to see Cesar Navarro here doing his absolute best, giving Peterman a hard time. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be enough. They are both out of boost, so no boost still remaining for Peterman or Cesar Navarro. Did Cordier? Yes, Cordier is into the pits at the end of lap 26. And let's see, his pit box is right at the end, as he came in mid-season, of course. So his pit box is right at the end of the pit lane. And he is going to feed out right alongside Felix Cabanes. This is going to be very, very close. He is going to have fresher soft tires on his blue car compared to the pink car of Felix Cabanes, though. So indeed, he does feed out into 4th position ahead of Cabanes. He does have Daniel Thomas up the road. We'll wait till Sector 2 to get a really reasonable gap between those two. As Autosport comes out of the pits, they are down into 11th position. Nicholas Coleman pretty far up the road as well. Joffret we don't think is stopping again, and Daniel Thomas we don't think is stopping again. So of the cars in the top 12, that should be everybody's pit stops sorted. We don't expect any more cars to be coming into the pits. So it's about a 3-second gap at the moment between Thomas and Cordier. 0.8 of a second between Cabanes and Cordier. And Cabanes is going to pick up the DRS here off of the back marker of Nicolas Morales, who it seems that his season is unfortunately done. So he's not going to be competing any further. Maybe he'll turn up for the last race. We can only speculate on that one, but. So it is Peterman who leads the way, 4.6 second gap to Cesar Navarro, another 4+ second gap down to Daniel Thomas, who's holding on to that 3rd place position, that final podium position, on a one-stop strategy on medium compound tires. He pitted at the end of lap 19, so this will be 9 laps completed for the medium tires on his car. So they should be holding up pretty well. He put in a 14.5 last lap, which was only about a tenth slower compared to Cesar Navarro, who's very, very quick in this race and up ahead of him on the soft compound tires. However, Valentin Cordier picks up the DRS on Jose Luis Navarro. That's going to allow him to close up that little bit on Daniel Thomas. 0.4 of a second, actually, taken out of that gap between himself and Thomas just in that previous lap. Nicholas Carrasco now makes the overtake on Richard Joffret. So Cabanes did indeed make that overtake on Joffret. That happened off screen, I believe. I apologize for missing that one. And now Carrasco becomes the next driver to pass Richard Joffret, who is still on for a solid points finish. The 2 cars behind him are Morales and Thompson, and they are a lap down, so that is not for position. The next car behind Joffret is actually Inceralde. You can see he's just making his way through the left-hander of turn 9 into turn 11 now. So he is 3.7 seconds behind the French manager Richard Joffret. And with only about 6 laps remaining in this race, he's going to need to be taking out about 7/10 a lap off of Joffret in order to close down that gap. And he only got about 0.4 of a second last lap. So yeah, that's not enough from Inceralde. Nicholas Pressy actually setting the fastest lap, deploying lots and lots of boosts, trying to close up to the back of Autosport. They have indeed. But Nicholas Pressy is completely out of boost now. He is on the medium compound tires, and now Autosport deploying some boost, just trying to pull away from Nicholas Pressy, trying to defend. They are, of course, on the soft compound tires. Let's see how old these tires are. Ooh, actually, the Autosport tires are looking very healthy after running 2 13-lap stints at the start and middle of this race. So that means they came in at the end of lap 26, which means they're only running a 9-lap stint on this set of soft tires. And indeed, the only person with similar tire wear compared to Autosport is actually Valentin Cordier, who I mentioned earlier is running in 4th position and starting to pressure Thomas for that final podium spot. Just 0.5 tenth, though, between Thomas and Cordier in that previous lap. It did, advantage Cordier. However, that's not going to be enough in order for him to catch up to Daniel Thomas. Not much boost remaining for Cordier. Daniel Thomas, meanwhile, has loads of boost. Absolutely tons of boost for the Swiss manager. Worth pointing out, I think, that Cesar Navarro was a little bit quicker on the previous lap compared to Peterman. However, that gap is pretty much the same. It was about 4.6, 4.8 thereabouts the last time we checked on it, and it's 4.7 now. So it hasn't been much change, and indeed Peter Mann has pulled 2/10 in that previous lap. So they're kind of trading times back and forth. Daniel Thomas continued to lap actually very well, actually setting a quicker lap time, 4/100ths of a second quicker than Valentin Cordier on the previous lap. So Daniel Thomas looking very good here for a podium in the penultimate race of this IGP Manager Apex Online Racing League. Let's just look at some more gaps. Nicholas Carrasco starting to close in possibly on Felix Cabanes. It is now just 2.2 seconds between those two guys. Franco Incerralde, as I mentioned earlier, just not gaining on Richard Joffre at a rate that's fast enough, I think, in order to actually take that 7th place position. And in fact, he's going to have to worry about Chandler Saita behind in 9th position, the very young American, the youngest competitor in this league, at just 15 years old. At least he was 15 when we started. He might be 16 now. But he is going to be pressuring the Argentinian for that 8th place, trying to pick up a couple more championship points. And of course, it is between him and Thomas, though. Remember, Chandler Saita is tied level on points with Daniel Thomas, and at this rate, Daniel Thomas is on to score 11 points more than Chandler Saita as the American moves himself up into 8th position. That would be 4 championship points for Chandler Saita compared to the 15 championship points of Daniel Thomas, who continues to maintain that 3rd place position here on lap 33, just coming to the end. So just 2 laps remaining in this penultimate race. It is absolutely flown by. Cesar Navarro doing his absolute best, trying to keep up with Peter Mann. Again, only about 5 seconds between the two of them after 33 laps of racing. So very, very close between these two competitors, despite what the gap may seem like. Daniel Thomas starting to drop back, though, almost 4/10 slower than Cesar Navarro on that previous lap, and indeed almost 5/10 slower than Valentin Cordier. Here comes the French manager. Worth mentioning, though, Daniel Thomas does still have a ton of boost still remaining. Oh, and Incerralde has lost another position. So at one point we thought Incerralde might be pressuring Joffre for 7th place, but he got overtaken by Saita, dropped down into 9th position. Now he's been overtaken by Coleman, who still has lots of boost remaining and soft compound tires. He's got quite a bit more boost still remaining compared to Saita. If I were him, though, I would be using that boost right now to try and pick up the DRS on the final lap, because this is the penultimate lap of this penultimate race. Peter Mann starts the final lap. The white flag is out. Cesar Navarro about 6 seconds adrift. Here comes Daniel Thomas to cross the line. Valentin Cordier about 1.6 seconds now between himself and Daniel Thomas. I don't think he's going to actually catch the Swiss manager and take that final podium position. Felix Cabanes maintains that top 5 position ahead of his compatriot Nicholas Carrasco, who I don't think is going to be able to close up to the back of Cabanes. Richard Joffre just about holding on to 7th place as we start the final lap. Here comes the boost from Nicholas Coleman. He closes right up to the back of Chandler Saita, setting a purple sector 1 for the French manager. He's right up to the back of Saita here. It looks like he really wants to make the overtake, but Saita just about maintains the position as they make their way into the double right-handers in sector 2 here. Saita doing his absolute best, trying to hold on. The leaders are coming to the end here. It looks like Peter Mann is going to take a comfortable victory ahead of Cesar Navarro. Daniel Thomas not that far behind, just now using his boost. He's going to end up with boost to spare at the end of this race. A fantastic podium result for the Swiss manager ahead of Valentin Cordier in 4th, Felix Cabanes in 5th, Carrasco in 6th. Richard Joffre is just about going to hold on to 7th position. He does indeed, ahead of Chandler Saita and Nicholas Coleman. Incerralde claims that final point in this race. Autosport just outside in 11th position, does finish ahead of Nicholas Pressey, though, on merit, though. So a fantastic result, again, I have to say, for Autosport. It might not have been points this time, however, very well deserved. I mean, they were looking very strong in there. Possibly some questionable decisions as far as boost usage. Their pace in the early stages of the race just really didn't seem to be up to par with everybody else. Again, they started in 3rd as the 2nd fastest soft runner in qualifying, but then they were just nowhere in the opening laps, losing tons of positions, dropping outside of the points, and then they did a great job of actually nearly getting back into the points. They were right up to the back of the final points-paying positions there at one point in the middle of the race, but unfortunately for them, it is going to be another finish outside of the points. But Jake Thompson, who was not present today, not scoring any points, so this is not going to have any sort of effect on those guys as far as the championship is concerned. Autosport will still be 15th in the standings. Speaking of the standings, let's back out now and see if we can have a quick look at the standings. I'm just giving it a moment here to see if it's going to because sometimes it refreshes, and I just want to make sure that doesn't happen on screen, because I'm sure it's not the most visually awesome thing that can happen. So I'm just going to give it a second here. But wow, what a race. I have to say, the races towards the tail end of the season, while not as exciting at the front of the field, have been even more exciting in the midfield, which sort of mirrors another single-seater series that races in real life that I'm sure you guys are aware of. So yeah, not the most exciting race up at the front, but very, very exciting in the midfield for the podium positions as well. I gotta say, my driver of the day, manager of the day, might be Daniel Thomas on that one-stop strategy and on the podium. Really impressive stuff from the Swiss manager. It hasn't refreshed yet, but let's go ahead and just bring up the new standings here. So this is how things are looking after the penultimate race. Peter Mann moves himself up to 312 points. Unbelievable. He's averaging almost very nearly 20 points per race, which is really incredible. Cesar Navarro extends his lead over Nicolas Morales. In fact, that's now 33 points, which means Morales cannot take it. So Cesar Navarro, congratulations to you, sir. You have claimed second position in the championship. And indeed, Felix Cabanes cannot catch Nicolas Morales at this point. Oh, there's the refresh that I was trying to avoid for you guys. Let me bring the standings back up here. There we go. I was quick on the draw, though. So, yeah, Nicolas Morales claims third position. So, yeah, the top three are all sorted in the championship. Peter Mann has won. Cesar Navarro, the younger Navarro brother, is going to claim second position in the championship standings. Nicolas Morales is going to claim third in the championship, so congratulations to those three. Felix Cabanes still, though, only 13 points ahead of Nicolas Carrasco, so that battle between the Spaniards is very much still on. And indeed, with that third place finish, Daniel Thomas has moved within 9 points of Nicolas Carrasco and within 22 points of Felix Cabanes. So, barring a race win for Daniel Thomas at Abu Dhabi and an absolutely terrible result for Felix Cabanes, it doesn't look like Daniel Thomas is going to be able to finish any higher than fifth position. But Chandler Seitz is still in it as well. He's 20 points behind Carrasco. So, Chandler Seitz, I would say, still involved in the fight for sixth position. Daniel Thomas still involved in the fight for fifth position. And also, he's got to be worried about Chandler Seitz as well. Valentin Cordier with another solid result. I have to say, Cordier has done an absolutely amazing job in the second half of this season, coming in, scoring 102 points. I don't remember which round he came in for, but he's been here for less races than everybody except for Richard Joffre, and he's still 8th in the championship standings and only 6 points behind Chandler Seitz, and indeed only 17 points behind Daniel Thomas. I'd say Cordier is a real threat for a second place finish, possibly even a race win in the finale at Abu Dhabi. So Cordier, he could gain positions in the final race of the season, and then it's a big gap of 43 points from Cordier down to Pressy. So the top 8 very separated from the bottom 8, but it is still close. Just 9 points between Pressy and Jose Luis Navarro. Insaurralde just 3 points behind Coleman, and it is now a 10-point gap between Richard Joffre and Autosport after Joffre scored those solid points today with that one-stop strategy. So that is going to do it for the broadcast. I thank you so much to you guys, as always, for joining. Of course, it's so much fun to do these, and I really hope you guys enjoy them. Please tune in next week for the final round. The final round. I can't believe it. It's already been 17. Well, it's been 16 races. Next week will be 17 races, and that will be the final race of the Apex Online Racing IGP Manager League Season 1. We do hope that there will be a Season 2. We are looking to have a Season 2. So make sure you guys keep an eye on the IGP Manager Twitter. And if you haven't tried IGP Manager, definitely check it out, because you've got some time before Season 2 is going to start. And who knows, maybe you'll qualify and you'll get to take part in the AOR League as well. But again, that is going to do it for myself, Justin Sutton, and the entire IGP Manager team. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you in 1 week's time for the final race of the season. Bye-bye.